Hello friends, welcome to the Night Watchman channel. Today I'm going to tell you a terrifying and thrilling creepy horror story that will make you feel the chill of fear. If you enjoy my story, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can feel your love and support through your likes and subscriptions. I never thought flipping burgers could break a man. When I first started at Burger King, I told myself it was temporary, just a pit stop before I found something better. But temporary stretched into years. 10-hour shifts, 6 days a week, the smell of grease burned into my clothes and skin. Every day blurred into the next. The hiss of the fryer, the low hum of the milkshake machine, the crackle of old fluorescent lights. My name's Ryan Keller, and I'm 26. I live in Dayton, Ohio, with my grandfather, Arthur Keller, in a small one-story house on Maple Avenue. He's been my only family since the night my parents died in a car crash when I was 2. I don't remember the wreck, just the stories. A drunk driver ran a red light. My mom and dad never made it home. Grandpa raised me alone, and though he never talked much about it, I could always see the weight behind his smile. He's 81 now, and most days he just sits in his recliner watching reruns or playing his old Nintendo Entertainment System. He doesn't own a smartphone, barely knows how to use the internet, but he loves that old Nintendo. His favorite game? Duck Hunt. Every night before work, I'd join him for a round. He'd grin like a kid, watching me aim the orange plastic gun at the screen. "Come on, Rye," he'd chuckle. "Get that birdie." "You can't let it fly off again," I'd laugh and fire. "Got it, Grandpa." Still got my aim. He'd smile, eyes wrinkling. That's my boy. Those small moments made the long shifts worth enduring. But things were getting tight. The bills were stacking up, and I was desperate to move out, find my own place, maybe start night school. I needed money, badly. That's why I never turned down extra hours. Even the graveyard shifts nobody else wanted. Our Burger King was a quiet one, tucked at the corner of a sleepy residential stretch on Linden Street. Not many customers after 9 p.m. Mostly truckers, the occasional drunk, and a few of the local homeless folks. I preferred the calm nights, but there was one customer who made me dread the clock hitting 9. He'd show up every evening around that time, dressed head to toe like the Burger King mascot, the golden crown, the maroon robe, the creepy plastic grin frozen in place. At first I thought it was a prank, some YouTuber filming reactions or trying to go viral. But this guy wasn't laughing. He didn't speak much either, at least not normally. When he did, his voice came out muffled behind the rubber mask, strange and deliberate, like someone rehearsing lines. The first night he came in, I was wiping down the front counter when I heard the bell above the door. "Welcome to Burger King," I said automatically. "What can I get for you tonight?" The man in the mascot suit tilted his head slowly, then said in a deep, exaggerated tone, "Give me 30 Whoppers." I blinked. 30? As in 30? He nodded once. 30 Whoppers. Have it your way." I laughed nervously, glancing toward my coworker, Jamie, who was cleaning the soda machine. Sure thing. You want them as combos or just the sandwiches?" The man slammed a handful of crumpled bills on the counter. "Have it your way," he repeated. He then walked to one of the corner booths and sat perfectly still, his crown glinting under the fluorescent light. 10 minutes later, I carried the tray piled high with greasy wrappers to his table. That's when I noticed his phone propped up against a salt shaker, camera recording. Here you go," I said. "All 30. He didn't answer, just stared at the food. Then, without a word, he began eating. Fast, messy, animal-like. Grease dripped from his gloves as he tore through the burgers, the masked mouth bending grotesquely with every bite. By the time he hit 10, he slowed, slumped, and passed out cold right there in the booth. Jamie whispered, "Yo, should we call someone?" "He looks dead," I shook my head. "Nah, he's breathing. Probably just full." When midnight rolled around, we started closing the dining area. I walked over to wake him. "Hey, sir," I said softly, tapping his shoulder. "We're closing." "You gotta head out," he groaned. "Whopper? Make me Whopper." My chest tightened. "Sir, we're closed. You need to go." He stood slowly, the crown tilting forward. For a second, he just stared at me. silent. Then he said, "Fine. Have it your way." He shuffled out the door, the bells jingling as the cold night swallowed him. I finished mopping the floor, clocked out, and ordered an Uber. As the car pulled away, I caught sight of a figure standing under the streetlight across the parking lot. The Burger King mascot, watching. I told myself I imagined it. When I got home around 1 a.m., Grandpa was asleep in his chair, TV still flickering with static. I turned it off, tiptoed into the bathroom, and hopped in the shower. Halfway through rinsing my hair, I heard something. A faint creak. "Grandpa," I called out. Silence, then knocking. Not on the front door, on the bathroom door. I froze. Water streamed down my face, but my blood went cold. "Grandpa?" Then came a voice. Deep, familiar. "Open the door." I dropped the shampoo bottle. Who's there?" "Open the door," the voice said again, slower. My pulse thundered. "Get the hell out of here. I'll call the cops." "Fine," the voice said, lower this time. "Have it your way." Then bang, the door rattled. Again. "Bang," I screamed. "Stop it." The third slam left a crack near the hinges. I stumbled back, heart pounding, when I remembered Grandpa's gun. He'd told me once he kept it under the bathroom sink, wrapped in an old towel. Hands shaking, I knelt and pulled it out. Bang! The wood splintered. Then through the hole I saw the mask, the plastic grin. "Here's your whopper," he hissed. "Please," I cried, "just go!" Then behind me, Grandpa's voice. Calm, steady, the same tone he used during duck hunt. "That's it, Rye. Take aim. Don't let him get away." Shoot the birdie tears blurred my vision. "Grandpa, I can't." "Yes, you can, son. Shoot the birdie." The door burst open. The mascot lunged forward. I screamed and pulled the trigger. The blast echoed through the house. My ears rang. When the smoke cleared, the man was crumpled on the floor, the plastic crown rolling across the tiles. I gasped, chest heaving. "Grandpa!" I turned around, but the bathroom was empty. No trace of him. Only the faint hum of the NES in the living room. Duck Hunt still running on the screen, the dog laughing, and in the reflection of the TV glass behind me stood a man wearing a crown. Story 2, I never thought something as simple as grabbing a burger could change the way I looked at food forever. My name is Hannah Cole, 32 years old, and for as long as I can remember, Burger King had been my guilty pleasure. I lived in Cedar Falls, a small middle-class town tucked somewhere between cornfields and highways that stretched for miles. Life here was quiet, predictable, and maybe that's why I clung to small comforts like fast food. After work, when the sun dipped low and the air smelled faintly of gasoline and fried oil, I'd take my usual 10-minute walk down Maple Avenue to the Burger King near the gas station. I wasn't proud of it, but Burger King was my escape. My husband, Evan, worked long shifts as a truck mechanic, and most nights he didn't get home until after midnight. Cooking for one felt pointless, so I let the flame-grilled aroma from the restaurant lure me in. I told myself walking there burned calories, a lie I happily lived with. But back then, it wasn't about the food, it was about the routine. I'd walk in, order my usual crispy tender chicken sandwich, and exchange a few words with the friendly staff. Mostly Maria, a middle-aged woman who'd worked there for years, and Tyler, the night manager with his messy hair and kind smile. They knew my order by heart. Until one evening, things changed. It was early October, and the wind carried that familiar chill that hinted winter was coming. I remember stepping inside and noticing right away, the familiar faces were gone. The restaurant felt different. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly, and the usual buzz of laughter and sizzling grills had been replaced with silence. Behind the counter stood a new guy I hadn't seen before. Tall, pale, with greasy black hair tucked beneath his paper hat. His name tag read Derek. He looked up from the register as soon as I entered, his lips curling into a strange half-smile. "Evening," he said. His voice was oddly low, like he was whispering even when he wasn't. I hesitated for a second before stepping forward. Yeah, hi. I'll have a chicken tender crisp to go, please." "To go?" he repeated, tilting his head. "Why not stay and eat here?" It's warmer inside, I forced a polite laugh. Thanks, but I prefer eating at home. He didn't move. He just kept staring, his eyes scanning me in a way that made my skin crawl. Then suddenly he smiled again. Wide this time. There's no place like home. Except Burger King. His tone wasn't playful. It was unsettling. I dropped a few crumpled bills on the counter and stepped back, pretending to check my phone. A few minutes later, he handed me the bag without a word. When our fingers brushed, I swear his hand felt ice cold. I walked home fast that night. The next few days passed, and I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just awkward, I told myself. Maybe I was overreacting. But that uneasy feeling stuck with me. Still, my cravings got the best of me. They always did. By the following week, I was back again. When I stepped inside, Derek was behind the counter once more. The restaurant was nearly empty except for an elderly man sipping coffee in the corner. Back again, huh? Derek said as soon as he saw me. You must really love our chicken. Yeah, I replied quickly. It's kind of my favorite. He leaned forward slightly. I could make it special for you. I blinked. Special? He grinned, showing yellowed teeth. Extra fresh. I laughed nervously. No thanks. Just the regular one's fine. When I got home that night, I scarfed down half the sandwich before I noticed it. A strange, slimy texture beneath the lettuce. I gagged instantly, dropped it on the plate, and lifted the top bun. There was something small and dark wriggling on the meat. A slug. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I covered my mouth. I thought maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe it was a trick of the light. But when I leaned closer, there was another one. And another. I screamed. Evan came rushing out from the bedroom, his face half asleep until he saw the sandwich. What the hell is that? I don't know, I stammered. It's from Burger King. He bent down, his expression turning from confusion to rage. You've been eating this? My stomach churned violently. I barely made it to the sink before I threw up everything I'd eaten. We could have thrown it out and moved on. But something about Derek's face, that smirk, flashed in my mind again. Evan wanted to storm down there immediately, but I begged him to wait until morning. We'll go talk to the manager, I said. We'll make them listen. The next day, we drove back to the restaurant, the disgusting sandwich sealed inside a Ziploc bag. The moment we walked in, Derek was at the register again. Well, look who's back, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Evan slammed the bag on the counter. What the hell is this? Derek blinked, glancing down at it. A sandwich. You think this is funny? Evan shouted. There are slugs in this thing. My wife's been eating your damn food for weeks. The restaurant went silent. A few customers turned their heads. Derek smirked. I don't know what to tell you, man. Maybe she ordered the garden special, Evan's fist clenched. You're a sick freak. Before things could escalate, a short man in a black Burger King polo hurried out from the back. The manager, Mr. Quinn. Is there a problem here? He asked sharply. Yes, there's a problem, I said, trembling. Your employee served me contaminated food, full of slugs. I've been sick for days. Mr. Quinn frowned, glancing between us and Derek. Ma'am, our food is inspected daily. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Evan yelled. You think we planted this? The manager crossed his arms. Sir, I'm asking you to calm down or leave the premises. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were protecting him. Derek stood there smirking behind the counter, enjoying every second. Evan's anger finally boiled over. He slammed his fist on the counter, shaking the napkin dispensers. You think this is a joke? She could have died. Sir, the manager snapped, I'm calling the police if you don't leave. So we left, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. That night, we went straight to the Cedar Falls Police Department, sandwich bag in hand. The officer on duty took our statement and logged it as a food contamination complaint. They promised to send it to the Department of Health for testing. Weeks passed. No updates, no calls, no emails. I called the restaurant once more out of desperation, but the number had been disconnected. A few days later, we drove down there, only to find the lights off and a sign taped to the glass door that read, Closed permanently. Thank you for your patronage. The building sat empty for months after that, But sometimes when I walked past it on my way home, I could swear I still smelled the faint scent of burnt oil and grilled meat. And for a split second, I'd see a flicker of light in the kitchen window. Once, I even thought I saw a figure inside, tall, wearing a Burger King uniform, staring right at me through the glass. When I blinked, he was gone. That night I dreamed of Derek, his voice whispering, "There's no place like home, except Burger King." I woke up gasping, and since then, I haven't eaten fast food again. Story 3. I never thought I'd end up working nights at a Burger King. Honestly, it wasn't my first choice. I had just dropped out of community college, broke and living alone in a small, one-bedroom apartment in Portland, Oregon. Rent was eating me alive, and I needed something, anything that could keep me afloat. That's when I saw a now hiring full-time positions available sign on the window of the Burger King down the block. 15 minutes from my place, close enough that I didn't have to worry about gas money. It was late spring, around May. Portland had that soft drizzle that came and went, the kind that clung to your jacket but never quite soaked through. I remember standing outside the restaurant that first day, watching the reflection of the neon Home of the Whopper sign shimmer on the wet pavement. That's how it started, the job that would change everything. The first few weeks were manageable. My days were mostly spent at the front counter or on drive-thru duty. Customers were impatient. Co-workers were burned out. But it was work. I was paired with Evan, another new hire, same age as me, 22. He was the type who cracked jokes even when things went wrong, the kind of guy who could turn a fryer fire into a comedy bit. The only one I didn't get along with was Harold, a man in his late 50s who'd been working there for over a decade. He was quiet most of the time, but when he did speak, it was usually something off-putting. He had this way of staring too long, not just at me, but at everyone, with a crooked smile that never reached his eyes. "Don't mind him," our manager Darlene once told me. "He's harmless. Just old school." But there was something about Harold that made my skin crawl. The way he leaned too close when giving directions, the subtle smirks, the occasional wink. I brushed it off at first. It was easier that way. One Friday night, after a brutal dinner rush, I went to use the employee restroom, the single one near the back storage area. I turned the handle, but it was locked. "Occupied," a voice called from inside. It was Harold. "Sorry, man," I said, waiting by the door. There was silence for a few seconds, then the sound of running water. When the door finally opened, Harold stood there grinning. "All yours, kid," he said. But he didn't move aside. He just stood there, blocking the doorway. Can I asked. He chuckled. "You really in a rush to get in there, huh?" "Yeah, kind of." He stepped closer. Too close, his breath reeking of cigarettes and onion rings. "You new guys never learn patience." Then he laughed, patted me on the shoulder, and walked off. Inside the restroom, the sink was still running. The mirror was fogged, like someone had been standing too close to it for too long. The air felt thick. I shook my head, finished my business, and tried to forget about it. But I couldn't. By the end of the month, Darlene started putting me on night shifts. She said I was responsible and quiet. In reality, no one else wanted them. It was usually just me and Evan after 9 p.m. We'd clean up, prep for closing, and handle the occasional drive-thru order. Most nights were dead quiet, the kind of silence that made the humming of the fryers sound louder than it should. One evening around 10:30, I noticed something strange. Out by the front windows, a figure in a Burger King mascot costume was waving at cars passing by. The plastic head gleamed under the streetlight, the big smiling face of the king, frozen in that eerie grin. "Dude," Evan said, looking out, "why the hell do we have a mascot?" "We never have one." "No idea," I replied. "Maybe Darlene's trying something new." He squinted. "That's Harold, isn't it?" "Has to be." We laughed it off, thinking it was some new promotion gimmick, but there was something wrong about it. The king wasn't waving normally. It was jerky, mechanical, like someone mimicking movement without rhythm. When I mentioned it to Darlene the next morning, she frowned. "What mascot?" "We don't have one," she said. I blinked. "You sure?" "He was outside the whole night." She looked confused. Harold wasn't even on the schedule last night. 2 nights later, I was alone. Evan had called in sick, and Darlene trusted me to close by myself. It was raining again, hard this time. The restaurant felt colder than usual. I was wiping down the counters when I heard a faint tapping sound coming from the drive-thru window. At first, I ignored it. Probably just rain. Then came another tap, louder, rhythmic. I turned. There, standing outside the window, was the Burger King mascot again. Motionless, its plastic grin gleaming in the dark. I froze. "Harold?" I called. "That you?" No response. The figure just tilted its head slightly to the side, a slow, unnatural movement. I backed away from the window, heart pounding. My phone was in the office. I turned to get it, but when I looked back, the mascot was gone. The back door creaked. That's when I heard the fryer start hissing, like someone had dropped something into it. I ran back to the kitchen, but there was no one there. The fry basket was half lowered, grease sizzling violently. My reflection in the stainless steel counter looked pale and shaking. I turned off the fryer, grabbed my phone, and called Evan. "Bro," I whispered, "someone's here." In the mascot costume, he laughed. "Oh, come on, man. It's probably Harold messing with you again." "No, Evan." Darlene said he wasn't even scheduled silence. Then he said quietly, "Stay in the office." "I'm on my way." It took Evan 20 minutes to get there. I watched the security cameras the entire time. Nothing but static in the hallway feed. When he arrived, I ran to the door and let him in. "See? Nothing here," he said, scanning the kitchen. "I swear he was—" Before I could finish, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out completely. The emergency lights glowed dim red. The air felt heavy with grease and dread. From the hallway, we heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. "Evan," I whispered. He grabbed a spatula, the closest thing to a weapon we had, and stepped forward. "Hello?" No answer. Then, emerging from the shadows, came the king. Towering, head tilted, holding something glinting under the light. A knife. "Jesus Christ," Evan hissed. "Harold, this isn't funny." The mascot didn't move, just stood there, breathing through the plastic mouth slit. Then it lunged. Evan tackled the figure, both crashing onto the greasy floor. The knife clattered away. I grabbed it before the mascot could reach it and held it out, trembling. "Take the mask off," Evan yelled, wrestling. I knelt beside them, heart hammering, and yanked the plastic head off. The face beneath wasn't Harold's. It was Evan's. For a split second, my mind couldn't process what I was seeing. My friend, the real Evan, was beneath the mask. The same voice, the same jacket, his eyes wide, gasping for air. And then I heard movement behind me. Another figure stepped from the shadows. The real Harold, smiling. "You shouldn't have stayed late," he said. I turned just as the lights cut out again. Screaming, footsteps, a struggle, the sound of something hitting the fryer. When I woke up, I was on the floor near the back exit. The restaurant was silent. The smell of burnt oil filled the air. The police said later that a fire had started in the kitchen sometime after 2 a.m. The surveillance system had gone offline minutes before. They only found one body, burned beyond recognition. They ruled it accidental. But sometimes when I walk past that abandoned Burger King, boarded up and covered in graffiti, I swear I still see that smiling king in the reflection of the glass, waving slowly from inside. And when the wind's just right, I can hear faintly, almost like a whisper, "Welcome to Burger King." Hello friends, I hope you're enjoying this story. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please hit the subscribe button so you can get a new story every day. Story 4. I never thought a fast food job could ruin my peace of mind forever. When I moved to Riverview, Indiana, I was just another broke 22-year-old trying to make ends meet. My apartment was small, barely big enough to fit a bed, a mini fridge, and a TV, but it was mine. After dropping out of community college, I needed something steady, something that wouldn't drive me insane. That's when I landed a night shift job at Burger King. I actually liked the quiet nights. Fewer customers meant fewer complaints, fewer rushes, and fewer people to fake a smile for. The hum of the fryers, the faint buzz of the neon sign outside, the rhythmic sound of rain tapping the roof, It all became weirdly comforting over time. It was my fourth month working there when things changed. That night, it was just me and Sharon, my supervisor. She was in the back counting inventory, and I was by the drive-thru window, scrolling through YouTube videos on my phone. Around 11:30 p.m., I heard the sound of tires crunching on gravel. A car pulled up to the speaker box. I put my phone aside, straightened up my uniform, and pressed the headset button. "Welcome to Burger King. May I take your order?" I said, trying to sound cheerful. There was a pause. Then a male voice came through, deep and oddly playful. "Yeah, we're hungry tonight." Something about the way he said we made me glance toward the CCTV monitor showing the drive-thru lane. The man looked to be in his late 40s, wearing a bright Hawaiian shirt and aviator sunglasses, at night. But what caught my eye wasn't him. It was what sat beside him in the passenger seat. A skeleton. A human skeleton propped up, dressed in a red floral dress, with a blonde wig resting crookedly on its head. At first I thought it was a Halloween prank or some kind of weird joke. But the way he was turned toward it, smiling, whispering something, made my stomach twist. I took a deep breath and forced a polite tone. "Sure thing, sir. What would you like tonight?" He looked back at the skeleton. "What'll it be, darling?" He chuckled softly as if waiting for an answer. "She'll have a cheeseburger and I'll take a Whopper." I froze for a second. The man was completely serious. All right," I said quickly, entering the order. "One Whopper and one cheeseburger." When he pulled up to the window, I forced myself not to stare too long. Up close, his face was strange. His eyes didn't blink much. He kept brushing the skeleton's hand like he was comforting it. "Jenny's not used to strangers," he said softly, handing me a $10 bill. "Got it," I muttered, handing him his order. "You two have a good night." He grinned. "Oh, we always do." He drove off, humming a tune I didn't recognize. For 10 minutes, I sat frozen, replaying what just happened. Sharon came out from the back. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said, sipping her coffee. I forced a laugh. "You could say that." The man came back the next night, and the night after that. Same car, same Hawaiian shirt, same skeleton. Jenny. Every time he'd order the exact same thing, a Whopper for himself, a cheeseburger for her. Sometimes he'd talk to her while waiting. Sometimes he'd gently brush imaginary crumbs off her lap. I told myself to ignore it. As long as he paid and left, it wasn't my problem. But one night, things changed. It was raining heavily, thunder shaking the windows, and Sharon had left early due to a migraine. I was alone. Around midnight, I saw the familiar car crawl into the drive-thru. I greeted him as usual, trying to mask the unease in my voice. "Welcome to Burger King. May I take your order?" "Jenny wants her cheeseburger," he said, "and I'll take the usual." I hesitated. We'd run out of cheese. "I'm really sorry, sir," I said. "We're out of cheese tonight. Can I substitute something else?" There was a long silence. I could almost hear him breathing through the headset. "Oh no," he said quietly. "Jenny loves cheese. She always has." "I understand, sir, but She wants her cheeseburger," he suddenly yelled. His voice cracked through the static. I jumped. I took a shaky breath. "Sir, please calm down. We can't." He cut me off with a strange laugh. "Jenny, she's jealous, isn't she? She doesn't like you talking to me." "What?" "You heard me. She's jealous. You shouldn't flirt with me while my girlfriend's right here." Something in me snapped. I was tired, scared, and angry. "Sir, that's not your girlfriend. It's a skeleton. You need help." The man's grin slowly faded. His eyes locked onto me through the window camera, cold and unblinking. Then in a low voice he said, "You shouldn't talk to Jenny that way." And he drove off. He didn't come back for a week. Part of me was relieved. Another part was guilty. What if he really was just mentally ill and I'd made it worse? I tried not to think about it, but that guilt vanished when he finally showed up again. This time Jenny wasn't there. He pulled up silently, ordered a Whopper, and didn't say a word. When I handed him his food, he smiled. "See?" he said quietly. "You got what you wanted. She's gone." Before I could respond, he drove off. But then I noticed in the reflection of the window, he'd parked across the street. He sat on the hood of his car, unwrapping the burger. He ate it slowly, never breaking eye contact with me. Ketchup smeared across his mouth like blood. He licked his fingers one by one, eyes glinting under the fluorescent lights. I felt my stomach churn. I turned away until I heard his engine roar and fade into the distance. The next day, I told my manager, Rick, about him. He didn't even hesitate. "If he comes back, call 911, Rick said. "Don't wait for me." 2 weeks passed. Nothing. Then came the night I'll never forget. It was almost 12:30 a.m., and I was getting ready to clock out early. The store was empty, the streets outside slick with rain. I was humming softly when I heard it, the creak of tires pulling into the lot. My heart dropped. I looked at the monitor. Same car, same man. But this time, there was someone in the passenger seat. Not a skeleton, a woman, a real woman. Her head was tilted against the window, her hair matted and wet. She wasn't moving. When he pulled up to the window, I caught the strong stench of alcohol coming from inside. "Hey there," he said with a crooked grin. "Told you Jenny was real." "Sir, is she okay?" I asked, my voice trembling. "She's fine," he said, brushing her hair. "Just a little tired." Long night. Her eyes were closed, her body limp. "Sir, if she's unresponsive, you need to—" Before I could finish, he reached into his glove compartment and pulled out a wrench. His smile turned into something monstrous. "See for yourself," he said. Then he started hitting her. Once, twice, again. The sound, metal against bone, echoed through the drive-thru. Blood splattered across the windshield. He kept screaming, "She's real! She's real! She's real!" as he smashed her skull again and again. I froze, screaming into my headset for help. By the time I managed to call 911, he was still beating her lifeless body, his shirt soaked red. When the police sirens wailed in the distance, he finally stopped. He turned his head toward me, his face painted with blood and madness, and whispered something I'll never forget. "You made her real." Then he just stood there smiling until the cops tackled him to the ground. 2 days later, I woke up in the hospital. Rick was there. He told me they caught the man red-handed. The woman he murdered had been picked up from a nearby bar. She was heavily intoxicated, and he'd taken her straight to the drive-thru to prove Jenny was real. He was charged with first-degree murder. I quit Burger King that week. Every time I close my eyes, I see that man's face, that grin, that blood, and the words he said echo in my head. "You made her real." Now I can't even drive past a Burger King without my stomach turning. I still wake up at night, hearing the faint squeak of tires outside my window. Maybe he's still there. Maybe in some way. Jenny is too. Story 5, I used to think I understood what starting over meant. You know, new city, new job, new chapter. But when life burns to the ground, starting over doesn't feel like a fresh page. It feels like sifting through ashes and pretending they don't still burn. Before everything fell apart, I was somebody. The kind of girl who spent summers at Martha's Vineyard and winters skiing in Aspen. My father, a venture capitalist in New York, built a fortune on tech startups before the crash of 2008 gutted everything. I was 19, a sophomore at Emerson College studying communications and buying overpriced smoothies on my parents' credit card. Then overnight, it was gone. House, cars, tuition. Dad's firm folded. Mom stopped speaking for days. I came home to find boxes stacked in our marble foyer, the family crest already taken down from the wall. By winter, we'd moved into my uncle's basement in Norwalk, Connecticut, a gray, moldy half-room that smelled like wet cardboard. It took me 6 months to find work. The only place that would take someone with no experience and a prep school accent was the Burger King off Route 7. At first, I was ashamed. I'd never worn a uniform before. Certainly not one that smelled like fryer grease and disappointment, but I needed money for rent, and maybe, just maybe, a sliver of purpose. That's how I met Elena, my shift supervisor. Tough Puerto Rican, early 30s, single mom of 2. She ran the kitchen like a general, but there was kindness behind the sharpness. Then there was Tommy, the fry cook, loud, funny, a stoner with a heart of gold. And Reggie, the night janitor, ex-Marine, built like a wall, but quiet, like he was carrying ghosts. By January, I had stopped caring what people thought. The night shift had become my routine. I actually liked the quiet hum after 10 p.m., when the daytime chaos died, and the only sounds were the soft sizzle of the fryer and the hum of the soda machine. It was a Friday night, snow thick on the ground. The parking lot lights reflected off the ice like glass shards. We closed the lobby at midnight, but drive-thru stayed open till 1. Around 11:30, the store was empty. Just us four, mopping floors and cleaning the grill. That's when the front door chimed. Elna looked up from the register. "We're still open," she asked. "Till midnight," I said. "Maybe he just wants a coffee." The man who walked in looked ordinary, mid-40s, pale with thinning blonde hair and a black hoodie damp from the snow. He didn't look drunk or high, just calm. Too calm. "Evening," Elena said, flashing her tired smile. "What can I get you tonight?" The man stared at the glowing menu board for a long time, his lips moving silently, like he was counting. Then he said softly, "2 double cheeseburgers." "Sure thing," she said, tapping the screen. But then he added, "Can I get them without the buns? Or the cheese? Or the bacon?" Elna hesitated. "So, just the beef patties?" "Yes," he said, "just the meat. And please, don't cook them." She blinked. "I'm sorry, you said don't cook them." He nodded. "I want them raw." I froze mid-wipe, rag in hand. Tommy, who'd been scraping the fryer, looked up and mouthed, "What the hell?" Elena tried to laugh it off. "Sir, we can't serve raw beef. Health code and all that." He tilted his head, smiling faintly. "It's not for eating. I just need them. As they are." "Still," she said, her voice tightening. "We can't." Then, as if he'd been expecting it, the man reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of cash. Hundreds, crisp and new. He placed them neatly on the counter. "How much would it take?" The kitchen went silent. You could hear the buzz of the soda machine, the hum of the freezer. Elna stared at the bills, then at me. "Reggie," she called toward the back. "Get over here." He came out, wiping his hands. One look at the money and his jaw tightened. "Sir," he said evenly, "we can't do that. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The man sighed as though disappointed in a child. "You don't understand," he whispered. "It's important." Reggie stepped closer. Now, the man's pale eyes met his, cold and empty. For a long second, no one breathed. Then slowly he gathered the money, folded it, and tucked it back into his hoodie. "Okay," he said, turning toward the door. "But you'll regret this." The door chimed as he left. Tommy let out a nervous laugh. "Man, that dude was creepy as hell." "Lock the door," Reggie said. Elena frowned. "We still got 20 minutes. Lock." It's something in his tone made her obey. For a while, we all went back to cleaning, pretending not to be shaken. But I couldn't shake the man's face, those washed-out eyes, like he wasn't really there. When I took the trash out to the dumpster around 12:15, I saw it. His gray sedan still in the parking lot, engine idling. My breath fogged the air. The driver's seat was dark, but I could make out the faint outline of his hand moving. He was holding something up to his face, a wrapper. My stomach turned. I watched in frozen horror as he pressed the raw patty to his mouth, not eating, just breathing it in, like he was savoring it. He turned suddenly, his face half lit by the dashboard, and he saw me. His mouth stretched into a slow smile. Then the car lurched forward, tires screeching on the ice. He sped off, the wrapper still in his hand. I ran inside, heart pounding. "He's still out there," I gasped. He was smelling the meat." Elena looked terrified. Reggie just grabbed my shoulder. "Say nothing," he said quietly. "You understand?" "Nothing." "What?" I stammered. "We should call—" "No." His eyes were dark, hollow. "Corporate hears about raw meat. We all lose our jobs." "Just drop it," I wanted to argue, but something about his tone shut me up. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man's face. The way he said, "It's important." A week later, the phone call started, always late after midnight. The caller ID just said unknown. When we answered, there was only silence. Sometimes faint static, like breathing. Then weird things began showing up. A blood-stained wrapper by the drive-thru window. A raw patty on the back doorstep, half bitten. Tommy found it one morning, pale and shaking. We reported it to the store manager, but she brushed it off as a prank. Then Reggie stopped coming to work. No call, no message. Just gone. His locker was cleaned out except for one thing. A photograph. A young woman, maybe in her 20s, smiling. On the back scrawled in shaky ink. She asked too many questions. Elena quit 2 days later. Tommy transferred to another store. I stayed. I don't even know why. Maybe because I needed answers. A few weeks later, I worked another late shift, alone up front. The drive-thru buzzer dinged. "Welcome to Burger King," I said automatically. "How can I—" A pause. Then a low voice came through the speaker. "2 double cheeseburgers," it said. My hand froze. No bun, no cheese, no bacon. The headset slipped from my ear. Through the frosted glass of the drive-thru window, I saw it. The same gray sedan, headlights cutting through the snow. The man was smiling, and in his lap were 2 dripping patties. He lifted one to his mouth, eyes closing. Then the lights flickered. The fryer sizzled on its own. The smell of blood, not grease, filled the air. I don't remember running. I only remember the cold air on my face as I burst through the back door, snow crunching under my shoes. When I look back, the restaurant lights had gone out completely, but the drive-thru window glowed faintly red. I never went back. A month later, the Burger King closed for renovations. It's still boarded up. Locals say it'll reopen soon, but I drive by sometimes, and the lot is always empty, except for one thing. A single burger wrapper, sitting on the curb, stained dark, like it's been soaked in something thicker than grease. Story 6. I never thought flipping burgers could mess with my head the way it did. Back in 2020, I was just another broke 20-something, trying to survive in a town that barely had a heartbeat. My name's Eli Turner, and at the time, I was living in Brookvale, a small industrial town in Tennessee, where the factory sirens were louder than the crickets at night, and the only places still open past 10 p.m. were the Chevron, a 24-hour laundromat, and the Burger King off Highway 41. I started working there after I lost my job at the auto shop. My girlfriend had just left, rent was overdue, and my old Ford Taurus needed new brakes I couldn't afford. Burger King was supposed to be temporary. 2 months tops, I told myself. But you know how that goes. 2 months turns into 6, and then you stop counting because every day feels like a rerun of the last. I worked mostly closing shifts, 4 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet. Fewer customers, less pressure, and more time to just zone out. My crew was small, Maya, who worked the grill, and Reggie, our shift lead. Maya was funny in that dry, tired way you get when you've seen too much nonsense. Reggie was older, maybe late 30s, bald, serious, but fair. We weren't friends exactly, but when you work those hours together, you become some kind of family. The "we survive this together" type. It was October 29th, a Thursday night. I remember because the town had just started putting up Halloween decorations. Paper bats in shop windows, fake spider webs tangled in real ones, pumpkins rotting on porches. That night, the wind had this strange bite to it, the kind that made the Burger King sign flicker and hum like it was tired too. The dinner rush had died down around 9 p.m., and by 9:45, the place was dead quiet. Reggie was in the back office counting the drawers. Maya was scrubbing the grill, humming something under her breath. I was out front mopping the dining area, bored enough to count ceiling tiles. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought I was just seeing things. The reflection on the window caught me off guard, a shape where it shouldn't have been. I blinked, leaned closer, and that's when my stomach dropped. There was a man. Inside. He was crouched low between one of the corner booths and the divider wall, knees pulled up to his chest, hands flat on the floor. He was wearing a dark hoodie and ripped jeans, and his sneakers were filthy, the kind of grime that doesn't come from just one bad day. His hood was up, head tilted down, and for a split second, I thought maybe he was drunk or homeless. someone who slipped in to get warm. But then he moved, slowly, intentionally. I felt my throat tighten. Hey, sir, my voice cracked. We're closed. No answer. Maya poked her head out from behind the fryer. You say something, Eli? There's someone in the dining room, I whispered, still staring. She frowned, wiped her hands on a rag, and stepped closer to the counter. What do you mean, someone? Before she could finish, the man stood up. His back stayed turned, and he didn't say a word. Then, without warning, he bolted. Not toward the exit, but straight behind the counter. Maya gasped. What the hell? I stumbled back as he ducked under the register area, his movements jerky and frantic. Sir, you can't be back there, I shouted. That's when he spoke, his voice trembling but loud. Don't come near me, I said. Stay back. Something about the way he said it froze me. It wasn't anger. It was fear. Real fear. Maya backed away, whispering, Eli, call Reggie. Now Reggie appeared just seconds later, holding the deposit bag. His eyes widened. Who is that? I don't know, man, I said, voice shaking. He was just hiding. Reggie cursed under his breath and reached for the phone. We're calling the cops. Both of you, outside. Now Maya didn't wait to be told twice. She pushed through the swinging doors into the back hallway, and I followed, my hands still trembling. I glanced over my shoulder once. The man was still crouched, now yanking at the register like he thought it would open if he hit it hard enough. We slipped out the back door into the alley behind the store. The wind cut through my shirt like ice. Maya's car keys jingled in her shaking hands. I'm not waiting here, she said. I'm leaving. Reggie stayed calm. Too calm. Just stay put. The cops will be here any minute. But then he looked back at the locked door and muttered, shit. My wallet's still inside. I didn't say anything. My phone was already in my hand, dialing 911. 911. What's your emergency? There's a guy inside our Burger King, I said quickly. He must have hid in before we closed. He's trying to open the register. Are you inside the building? No, we're out back. Stay outside. Officers are on their way. From where I was standing, I could still see the front windows through the side alley. The restaurant's lights glowed soft and yellow. The neon open sign still on, flickering faintly. Inside, the man was pacing now, his head jerking around like he expected someone to appear. Then he slammed something metal, a screwdriver maybe, against the cash drawer. 2 minutes later, I saw the first police car pull in, lights flashing. Another followed, then another. 3 officers got out, hands on their holsters. They went in fast. The next few minutes felt like forever. Then, movement. One of the officers came back out, followed by 2 more. Between them, handcuffed, was the man. He looked younger up close, maybe 25. His eyes were sunken, jittery. Sweat ran down his temples even though it was freezing out. One of the cops said they found a knife taped under his sleeve and a screwdriver in his pocket. He'd slipped in just before closing, hidden behind the booth, and waited. Waited for us to lock up so he could rob the place. The crazy part? There was no money in that register. Reggie had already done the final drop. He would have risked all that, his life, ours, for nothing. The officers took him away, but I couldn't shake the image. That crouched shape in the corner, the quiet before he moved. The way he said, "Don't come near me," like he knew something worse was coming. After that night, I couldn't do closing shifts anymore. Every sound after 10 p.m. made my skin crawl. The hum of the soda machine, the door chime, even the whisper of the fryer. Management added new rules. Sweep the dining area in pairs, lock the doors early if business was slow, check behind every booth before closing. They even installed a new security camera by the windows. But none of that made it better, because you can't unsee it once you've seen someone hiding right there in plain sight. I quit 2 months later, told them it was because I was moving out of town, but that wasn't the truth. The truth was, every time I closed my eyes, I saw that crouched figure again, still waiting, still quiet, still there behind the counter. Sometimes when I drive past that Burger King on Highway 41, I still look through the window. It's always empty now, lights humming faintly against the glass. But every now and then, when the reflection hits just right, I swear I can see a shadow crouched in that same corner, waiting for someone to notice. Story 7. I woke up that morning with a heaviness I couldn't shake. Not just tiredness, but a weight pressing down on my chest, like the air itself was thicker than usual. My alarm blared and I slapped it off, staring at the ceiling, trying to will myself awake. It was one of those Mondays that feel endless even before they start. I ran my hand through my tangled hair and glanced at the clock. 6:14 a.m. I had to be at Burger King by 7. 30 minutes to make coffee, shower, and convince myself I wanted to leave the warmth of my bed. My name's Lena, and I live in Cedarfield, a quiet town in northern Ohio, surrounded by cornfields and old factories that closed years ago. The population is small, the streets empty most nights, and nothing exciting ever happens here, unless you count the occasional drunk driving accident on Main Street. "Morning, Len," my roommate Hannah called from the kitchen, her voice carrying a cheerful lilt. She was already flipping pancakes and humming some tune I didn't recognize. "You look like someone stole your soul." I forced a weak smile. "Morning. Yeah, just one of those days, I guess." She tilted her head, concern flickering in her eyes. "Still working the late shift tonight?" I nodded, dragging myself out of bed. 12 to 8, same old." Hannah sighed. "You seriously need to eat before you go. You can't survive on coffee and fast food all the time." "Don't worry," I muttered, pouring coffee into my travel mug. "I'll grab something on my way back." The drive to Burger King was quiet, the streets almost eerily empty for a Monday morning. The warehouse area where I worked wasn't far, just 20 minutes from my apartment. I parked and grabbed my bag, heading inside. The morning shift crew gave me a wave and I nodded, returning to the rhythm I'd memorized over the past 18 months. Stocking, cleaning, greeting the occasional morning customer. Years ago, I'd been different. After high school, I had dreams, small but tangible ones. I wanted to move out of my parents' house in Columbus, finish college, maybe even get a desk job. But life has a way of twisting intentions. My father died suddenly when I was 20, and my mother couldn't keep her job and care for me at the same time. I had to drop out, work night shifts, and scrape by. Burger King became more than a job. It became survival. And survival, I'd learned, changes you. The day crawled on, cleaning, taking orders, answering phones, restocking the freezers. Hours blurred into each other. By the time my shift ended, I was exhausted, my feet aching, my brain foggy from fluorescent lights and the constant hiss of the deep fryer. I stepped outside into the cool night air. The streets were empty, just the soft hum of passing cars in the distance. My stomach growled, reminding me that breakfast had been a coffee and a granola bar. That's when I saw it, a faint glow in the distance, a 24-hour Burger King off Route 19. I sighed in relief. Perfect, just what I needed. The parking lot was mostly empty, a few cars scattered, their occupants barely visible behind tinted windows. I stepped out, tugging my jacket tight around me. That's when I noticed him, a man standing near the far end of the lot, his posture stiff, like a statue. His clothes were dark, simple, but his eyes, when they caught mine, felt like they were dissecting me. I paused, my gut twisting. "Just get your food and go," I muttered to myself. But as I walked toward the door, he started moving, slow but deliberate, toward me. I quickened my pace. "Hey," he called, voice low. "Can you help me out?" I stopped. Help you?" "Yeah, money, I'm stuck." Something about the way he said it set off every alarm in my head. He wasn't ragged, not homeless, but there was an intensity there, like he was playing a game I didn't know the rules to. "I'm sorry," I said, shaking my head. "I don't carry cash." His smile flickered for a moment, sharp and empty. Then he nodded. "That's fine. Just watch your car for me, yeah?" I frowned. "Excuse me?" He gestured vaguely toward my sedan. "It's, you know, just for a second." I didn't respond. My stomach sank, my hands trembling as I pushed open the door to the restaurant. The warmth hit me immediately, the smell of fries, grease, and cleaning products. I tried to calm my racing heart. I placed my order and sat at a corner table, glancing out the window. And there he was, standing next to my car. I froze. His hand grazed the driver's door handle. My throat went dry. I tried to look calm, but every instinct screamed at me to run. He moved to the back door, testing it. Locked. Then he pulled something from his coat. I couldn't see clearly at first, but the glint told me everything. A blunt object, a wrench, or a hammer maybe. Before I could react, crash. The driver's side window shattered, glass spraying like deadly confetti. People in the restaurant gasped. My heart leapt into my throat. I bolted toward the opposite side, fumbling for my phone. Hands shaking, I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man. He's breaking into my car. I managed, voice trembling. Please hurry. Stay where you are. Help is on the way, the operator said, firm but calm. I didn't move, couldn't move. My eyes were glued to the window. Minutes stretched like hours. Then flashing red and blue lights filled the lot. Relief washed over me as officers ran toward my car, shouting commands. I gave my statement, still shaking, wrapped in a blanket the manager had handed me. They promised to patrol the area and search for him. I never returned to that Burger King. Even now, months later, I avoid Route 19 at night. Sometimes when I drive late, I catch myself glancing in the rearview mirror, heart hammering, imagining those cold eyes watching me again. That night left a mark, not just on my car, but on me, a reminder that even in the safest towns, even in familiar places, danger can be closer than you think. Story 8, I never thought a late-night stop for a burger could turn into something I couldn't shake for months. My name's Maya Thornton, and back then, I was working third shift at a small print shop on the outskirts of Lansing. The building was old, one of those industrial spaces that still smelled faintly of varnish and dust even after hours of cleaning. I loved the quiet of night work, the hum of machines, the occasional creak of the old floors, but it drained me more than anyone expected. By the time my shift ended around 2:30 a.m., my back ached, my hair was sticking to my sweat-soaked neck, and my stomach demanded attention. I had a routine. There was a Burger King tucked between a shuttered laundromat and a gas station on Old Saginaw Highway. The sign flickered at night, half the letters buzzing, half dead. It had a reputation as the place everyone went when the bars closed, or when someone just needed food at odd hours. I'd passed it countless times, never had a problem, and the idea of a Whopper and fries on my way home felt like a small comfort I could afford after a 12-hour shift. That night, the streets were unusually quiet, the kind of stillness that presses against your ears. I parked my old Honda Civic in the cracked lot, wincing as the suspension groaned. The fluorescent glow of the dining room made the interior look like a diorama. Bright, sterile, yet somehow uninviting. Inside, it smelled like fried oil and overcooked meat, the aroma clinging to my clothes immediately. The few late-night patrons were sprawled across tables, college students on their phones, an exhausted man in a security uniform with his lunch, a mother trying to shush a toddler who clearly did not want to be quiet. Next in line, a young voice said, monotone, almost as if it were practiced. I turned to see a boy behind the counter, probably 18 with a thin face and dark circles under his eyes. His name tag read Tyler. Hi, I said, forcing a small smile. Can I get a Whopper meal? No onions, and a large Sprite. He tapped at the register mechanically, his gaze flitting between the screen and the deep fryer behind him. Total is $7.50, he said flatly. I swiped my card, nodded, and stepped aside. My bag was supposed to be ready at the pickup counter in a few minutes. I didn't even notice the other employee until he appeared. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a thick beard and sharp eyes, he looked more like a bouncer than someone who should be handling fries. His name tag read Derek. He was glaring at me before I even realized I existed. Order 222, Tyler called. I stepped forward and Derek handed me the bag, silent, tense. I mumbled a thanks, hoping that would be enough. Apparently it wasn't. Did you say it? He barked suddenly. His voice cut across the dining room, drawing a few curious glances. I froze. I thought I did. Sorry, thank you. No, that's not enough, he said, stepping closer. His arms were stiff, his face red, and something about him radiated a kind of dangerous intensity I hadn't encountered in years. Before I could react, he snatched the bag from my hands. My heart skipped. "Hey, wait! What are you doing?" "Piece of garbage," he spat, throwing the bag into the trash with a force that made the paper crumple. "You think you can walk in here and act like you're better than me?" I stumbled back, mortified, my stomach dropping. I, I didn't mean anything. Please, that's my food. I paid for it." Tyler, the younger kid, looked pale, his hands frozen over the register. Uh, Derek, maybe we should—" "I said leave," Derek snapped, spinning to glare at him. Then he turned back to me. "Now!" I couldn't believe this. I raised my hands. "I'm going." Forget the food. But as I reached the door, I realized he was following me, not just stepping out behind me, walking into the parking lot. My pulse spiked. "Hey," he called. "You got something to say?" "Say it to my face." "I said I'm sorry," I shouted, panic threading my voice. "Please don't. Just stop." He advanced a step. "Stop? Or what?" I fumbled with my car keys, my hands shaking. "I'm calling the police if you come closer." His face twisted into a red, furious mask, and he flipped me off with both hands. "You're lucky I'm at work," he growled. I slammed my doors, locked them, and backed out of the lot without looking back. The rearview mirror caught his shadow lingering near the door, watching. When I got home, my hands were still trembling. My apartment, normally my sanctuary, felt smaller, tighter, suffocating. I couldn't stop replaying the encounter, the silent threat in his eyes, the way he threw my food like it was an act of vengeance. That night, sleep evaded me, every noise outside my window making me flinch. I emailed corporate the next morning. Weeks later, I got a vague response, something about looking into the matter. Nothing more. I never went back. Months passed, but every time I drove past a Burger King, that tense, suffocating feeling returned. It wasn't just a fast food horror. It was a reminder that some people carry storms inside them, and you never know when they'll pour down on you for reasons that make no sense at all. Friends, be sure to tell in the comments which story you liked the most, and don't forget to subscribe and like.